So this sign on the screen, no pets, shoes, shirt required. What does it mean? Does it mean that no pets are permitted and shoes and a shirt are required to be worn? Or does it mean that no pets are required, no shoes are required, no shirt is required? Or does it mean something else? What this sign signifies depends upon one's armature of interpretation. Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Suglia, Suglia, and I would like to talk about the philosophical investigations of Wittgenstein. The Philosophical Investigations of Wittgenstein is a strange book, if it is a book at all. The text has no unifying thesis and no sustained argument. Wittgenstein opens arguments without yielding conclusions. He poses questions which he never answers, though he constantly tells us of the importance of context. Wittgenstein never gives us a context. The text is like philosophy on Mars. Having said this, two obsessions, two preoccupations emerge within its pages: the philosophy of language and human psychology. Most philosophers, Wittgenstein suggests, are led astray. They're led astray by trying to explain a hidden reality. Instead of attempting to unearth a truth behind appearances, we should look at what is right in front of us. Instead of attempting to uncover the truth, we ought to describe what is open to view. Those who pretend that the truth is hidden are really interpolating a truth that does not exist. They are like men and women imprisoned in a room with an unlocked door. It never dawns on them that to escape, all one must do is pull the door open. Wittgenstein begins his investigations by quoting St. Augustine. When he was a child, St. Augustine tells us he learned what words meant by observing the objects that his elders were pointing at as they uttered those words. But this is a naive way of thinking of the essence of language. According to St. Augustine's view, and according to the view of most people, the meaning of a word is the object which that word indicates. But again, this is naive. It presupposes that there is some kind of hidden agreement between words and things. And as Wittgenstein reminds us, there is none. There is no natural or perspicuous connection between language and the objects in the world. The Augustinian understanding of language is simplistic. It assumes that one word refers to one thing. The word dog refers to a dog. The word frog refers to a frog. The word log refers to a log. The word bog refers to a bog. But this misinterpretation decontextualizes an individual word and ignores the immense web to which it belongs. Each word is a node in a web, and that web is unutterably intricate. Wittgenstein has a contrary approach. For Wittgenstein, meaning is predicated upon usage. Meaning is predicated upon usage. What a word means is based upon how that word is used. That's all he means. What a word means is based upon how it is used. I can invent a nonsense word, such as querdiup, and it still can produce meaning. Everything depends on how the word is employed and how the word is deployed. Only after the word is enacted, only after the word is actuated, only after the word is actualized, is there an association between word and meaning. But the meaning does not lie behind or beneath words. Meaning comes after the fact. Meaning comes after the fact. After the word is actuated, after language is activated. Let us say that a cafe owner wants her barista to clean the tables in the cafe. She invents the word "querdiup," which means, for her, clean the tables. Now, if this word "querdiup" were part of a private language, an idiolect, it would signify nothing. No one would understand it, and no work would be done. But if the cafe owner cleans tables as a demonstration of the meaning of the word is granted meaning by the performance of the activity of cleaning tables. She gestures at the table while saying, "querdiup." She demonstrates the cleaning of the table while she is uttering the word "querdiup." By using the word in a specific context, the cafe owner confers a meaning. She suggests a meaning. She does the thing and uses the word while doing so. By being used, the word evokes, betokens, a meaning. By performing the action of cleaning the tables, as she articulates the word, she gives the word a meaning. Now the word is no longer meaningless. It now has a meaning, and all meanings are generalities. But if the cafe owner did not use the word would be mute, silent, meaningless, dead. The employee now understands what the word "querdiup" means whenever he or she hears the word. The meaning "clean the tables" is now associated with the word "querdiup." In paragraph 7, Wittgenstein introduces the term language game. By this, I take Wittgenstein to mean that language is not a network of signs freighted with pre-given signifieds. No, language is essentially an activity. In order for a word to mean anything at all, one language user must articulate a word, and another language user must respond by acting that word out. So language is a game, in German a Sprachspiel. Sprachspiel. Language is a game between at least two players. A corollary to this argument is that language is not a game that can be played alone. So language is only meaningful insofar as it is played between at least two interlocutors. The question is never, what does this word signify, but rather, what usage shows what this word signifies, right? This is one of the reasons why we ought to be skeptical, if not outright cynical, of dictionaries. Words are not dead things that are housed in dictionaries. Dictionaries are collections, accretions of simplifications. It is very easy to say what a word means. It is much more difficult to show how a word is used. It is also much more productive to do so. If you want to know what a word signifies, look at how a poet uses that word. Turn to sophisticated users of language and imitate their usage. For language, as Wittgenstein tells us, is a form of life. And like other forms of life, language grows. As a result of the fixation on language, Philosophy is folded in on itself. Philosophy folds in on itself. It evaginates. Philosophy was now concerned with words rather than with truth, in quotation marks, or reality, in quotation marks. Thus, Wittgenstein marks a shift away from a consideration of noesis, that means thought, thinking, right, towards a consideration of phone and graphe. Those are Greek words that mean speech and writing. But Wittgenstein, as I said earlier, is like philosophy on Mars. Now, here's another thought experiment. Here's another example, really. All right, the cafe owner. Now, let us chimerize, let us imagine that the cafe owner points at a table and says, table. She means evidently clean that table. However, she doesn't say clean that table. Is the word table a shortening of clean that table? Why isn't clean that table a lengthening of the command table? So when the cafe owner utters the command table, does she think to herself beforehand, clean that table? No. No, Wittgenstein writes, no. Although this is my own example. No, manifestly not. The point is that it is unnecessary to think an ostensible full sentence before one speaks or before one writes, right? It's not like we think and then speak. That's not how language works. Language has no interior structure. Language is not rooted in some unspeakable interiority. Here we discover that Derrida is a plagiarist of Wittgenstein, whom the former passed over in silence. It's true. Wittgenstein was never directly named by Derrida, as far as I can tell. Language users, those who use language and those who are used by language, choose one locution as opposed to another. But who is one to say that one locution is complete, whereas the other locution is incomplete? Why do we consider clean that table to be a full imperative, whereas we regard table to be an incomplete imperative? Why? This example is my own, right? Wittgenstein's own example is the imperative slab, as opposed to bring me that slab. Why do we assume that bring me that slab is the complete command, whereas slab is an incomplete version of that same command? Doubtless because we have been trained, tamed, groomed to believe that bring me that slab is the model, right? And slab is a derivation or an aberration of that same model. So before we speak or write, there is no pre-linguistic thought or intention, which would then be translated into words. There is only language, and language is all englobing. And we are players within its arena. To quote the 1975 film Rollerball, no player is greater than the game itself. No player is greater than the game itself. Neither are words labels or stickers affixed to pre-given objects. Words are forms of equipment to be used in a language game. Or to present a different metaphor, they are apparatuses, instruments, tools, utensils. And such tools only make sense within a particular setting, a specific circumstance, a specific occasion, a specific context. In order to validate Wittgenstein's argument for yourselves, conduct the following experiment. Now, this is a thought experiment that I would invite all of you to conduct yourselves. Before you speak, do you think a complete sentence or a complete paragraph and then vocalize those precise words? Do you? Do you? Before you write, do you think what you want to write and then repeat those same words in graphic scriptorial form? Or do you perform speech? Do you perform writing? Now, if you do the former, then St. Augustine is correct. If you do the latter, then Wittgenstein is correct. So language does not reflect noetic states. Noetic states are what phenomenologists call mental states. So language does not reflect mental states, noetic states. If a student says to his or her teacher, I understand, does this mean that he or she understands? No, not necessarily. And no teacher should think that a student who says, I understand, understands anything. I understand is merely a cultural convention. If you'd like a literary example of this, read Jerzy Kosinski's novel Being There, or see the excellent cinematic interpretation thereof. I understand does not mean that one understands. And someone who says, I am alone is not alone. Someone who says, I am alone is not alone. Why? Because the words, I am alone, open the possibility of communication with someone who would be listening. Someone who says, I am in pain is not, someone who says, I am in pain is not in so much pain that he or she cannot announce the words, I am in pain. Announce with an E, right? If someone says, I am in pain, the words that are uttered do not issue from the space of an inner experience. If I say, I am in pain, I don't say these words after I have turned inward and experienced the sensation of pain. If I say, I am in pain, it is because I am in a hospital and I want the nurse to bring me some morphine. We do not speak or write after thinking or feeling something. We perform our thoughts and feelings in language as we are speaking, as we are writing. If I say, I am in pain, I am not in pain. And I know this is controversial, and I've said this to people and they disagreed with me, but hear me out. Think about it. If I say I am in pain, I am not in pain. If I say I am in pain, I want something from someone. The language in which I am participating is a form of behavior, a form of living practiced by someone who is living in the world. The expression I am in pain replaces the experience of pain. One's inner experience of pain is incommunicable. One's inner experience of pain is incommunicable. You can never communicate to anyone in a perspicuous manner your singular sensation of pain. It would be idle to attempt to do so. As soon as you articulate the words, I am in pain, you are participating in language. As soon as you articulate the words, I am in pain, you are participating in language, and language is always social. So what is Wittgenstein saying? Someone who says, I am in pain, is not expressing one's pain. That's not an expression of pain. Language is always social. It is compact of generalities. There is no such thing as a private language, an idiolect. The concept of a private language is not just an oxymoron, it is an instance of antiphrasis, which is basically a bad oxymoron, a nonsensical, incoherent version of an oxymoron. Language generalizes. We should have nothing to do with those who think that all generalization is bad. They do not understand that the statement, all generalization is bad, is itself a generalization. Anyone who says all generalization is bad is generalizing. It would be impossible for me to compass all of the nodes of this extraordinarily complex text. The text is not compassable. in a brief duration. However, I would be an irresponsible summarist if I did not at least touch upon Wittgenstein's distinction between seeing and seeing as. Let's talk about that now. So what does seeing mean? What does it mean to see? Well, seeing is, to quote Wittgenstein directly, I see this, right? I see a thing as a thing, right? But seeing as means perceiving a likeness between two things. Here, Wittgenstein is very close to Nietzsche. I can't get into that now, perhaps in a future video. Seeing as means perceiving one thing as something else, right? So seeing means I see this object, I see this person, whatever it is. But seeing as means perceiving one thing as a different thing. Okay? There is another term for seeing as, which Wittgenstein does not use, pareidolia. Pareidolia. Pareidolia is the phenomenon of perceiving a coherent pattern in an assemblage of things, right? An assemblage of things that are randomly arranged. For instance, I might see a human face in an avocado, or a cantaloupe, or a kiwi. You might perceive a human face in the trunk of a tree, or on a stone, or on a mountain. You might perceive a cloud as if it were a giant, a nebulous Goliath. A similar concept is apophenia. What is apophenia? Apophenia is the tendency to perceive connections between things where there are no connections, apophenia. However, I won't discuss that concept here. And now we must discuss the famous duck rabbit. We must talk about Wittgenstein's famous duck rabbit. The duck rabbit is a drawing that appeared in 1892 in a German feuilleton, a comical magazine called Die Fliegende Blätter. Now, if you look at the drawing one way, it looks like a duck. And if you look at the drawing another way, it looks like a rabbit. It's an optical illusion, right? You could internet search this image. I do recommend that you do so. I invite you to do so. Again, it's a picture that looks like a rabbit when pointed one way and looks like a duck when pointed another way. Now, I could say, oh, that looks like a duck. Sure. But then I am missing or ignoring the ambivalence of the image, right? It could either be interpreted as a duck or a rabbit, depending on how I look at it. Now, I am not seeing it as a duck that could be seen as a rabbit. No, I'm just seeing it as a duck. I'm seeing it as a duck. I'm not seeing as, get it? So I'm seeing, but I'm not seeing as. The same is the case if I give this account. Oh, I see a rabbit. Well, then I am again merely giving you an account of my perception. I'm telling you what I perceive, simply, right? But I'm not telling you that I can perceive the image as a rabbit or as a duck. But what if I say, oh, well, that looks like an optical illusion? Or what if I say that looks like a picture of a duck rabbit? Or that looks like a picture duck rabbit? What if I say that looks like a picture of a rabbit duck? What am I doing then? Well, then I am doing something other than merely giving you an account of my perception. If I see the image as an image, I am no longer perceiving at all. I am talking or I am writing. I am not perceiving. You get the point? Okay, this is the main point. To quote the text directly, seeing as is not a part of perception. That's Wittgenstein. Seeing as is not a part of perception. End of quotation. And if the duck rabbit is surrounded by a leash of rabbit in one image and surrounded by a waddling of ducks in another, Do we perceive the same duck rabbit in both images? Probably not. Not if I comment upon the similarities and the differences between the two images. Then I am not seeing, I am seeing as. The point, I think, is that perception and expression are not the same. Perception and expression are not the same. Language is a different mode of living than perception, than perceiving. The more we attempt to explain what something is, the less we understand what it is. And thereby, the entire book, this chaotic book, turns full circle. Thank you very much. My name is Joseph Sulia, Suglia, signing out and signing off. Thank you very much.